What's going on, folks? Welcome to another episode of Ask RGT 85, where I answer your questions. This week's question comes to us from a long-term viewer of the channel named Josh. Josh has been here pretty much probably since day one. I got to meet him last year at Too Many Games at one of the after parties. He's a super cool dude. So Josh, thank you for this question. Josh basically wants to know what my thoughts are on the rumor that Sony paid Capcom to keep titles off the Nintendo Switch. And it's an interesting rumor because at first you might be like, that sounds crazy. But I think the more you look at it, the more possibilities there are, but at the same time, the more things, sort of red flags show up that say maybe it's not such a possibility. So for this video, I've decided to first talk about why it's a possibility, and then talk about why it's not a possibility, and then give you my final thoughts and my decision on whether or not I think this happened. So, did Sony sneak around and give Capcom some money to keep games off the Nintendo Switch? Let's find out. Before we get into sort of the facts of the situation and sort of what's going on, I do kind of want to preface this by saying this is definitely a possibility, and some sort of examples I want to use on this is just third-party exclusives in general. Games like, with Bayonetta 2 being a Wii U exclusive, Street Fighter 5 being a PS4 exclusive. We see exclusive games happen a lot from third-party companies on, all of the platforms. And how do these games end up happening? Is it because they say, hey, we really want to put our game exclusively on this platform? No, it's because of money. Money. That's what all of this is based on. And to think that shady dealings don't happen in the world of video games is very disingenuous. You got to remember, cash rules everything around me. Cream get the money, dollar dollar bill, y'all. And it's always been prevalent in video games. Like, yes, we view video games as this fun thing where, everyone's just having a good time escaping reality and whatnot, but it's a business at the end of the day, like $1 billion industry business. Like, think about when Nintendo had a stronghold on third-party companies. Think of all the shady things that happened between Nintendo and Sega during the console wars. If you're not familiar with that, read the book by Blake J. Harris, I believe is the one who wrote that, called Console Wars. Amazing book, really looks at the back end of what happened between Nintendo and Sega during the 16-bit days. But to think that we see third-party exclusives happen all the time in daylight, knowing that it's money that made this thing happen, to think that the opposite of that doesn't happen, to keep games off of certain platforms, is disingenuous, because that's what a third-party exclusive is at the end of the day. It's to keep a game off of a certain platform. So the whole rumor pretty much started when Monster Hunter World was unveiled at E3 as coming to the PS4, Xbox One, Steam, no Nintendo platform in sight. And a lot of people cried foul at this because it was strange. Monster Hunter has been doing very well on Nintendo platforms. Sure, it started out originally on Sony platforms, but it's always sort of thrived on Nintendo platforms, especially in Japan, where the Monster Hunter brand is huge. Like, that's one of the biggest brands, that's one of the biggest game franchises in Japan. So this came as a bit of a shock. Sure, the game is a bit more westernized, I feel. It does sort of deviate from the original Monster Hunter style, but it's definitely a Monster Hunter game through and through, and it'll still sell based on its name alone. So for Sony to not want this on a Nintendo platform actually makes a lot of sense, because like I said, Monster Hunter is huge in Japan, and what two brands really make a difference in Japan? That would be Sony and Nintendo. Yes, the game is coming to the Xbox One, but the Xbox One is dead in Japan. It never was alive in Japan. The Xbox brand does not exist in Japan, and maybe one day I'll do a video on this, but did you know that the Xbox One sold 76 consoles last week? 76! Like, that's insane. The Japanese market just does not like the Xbox brand, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but I will save that for another video. So for Sony to go to Capcom and say, yo, it's totally cool that we got the game, it's totally cool that Xbox has the game, it's totally cool that it's on Steam, but we don't want it on the Switch, because we feel like that'll eat into our, profits, it'll eat into our sales. They are probably right in thinking that, because you have to remember, what is a dominant thing in Japan? The handheld scene. And the fact that Nintendo has sort of fused the home console and the handheld into one, Monster Hunter World would have came out on that system, even with the install base of the PS4 being so much higher, I definitely think the Switch version would have outsold it. I definitely think the Switch you know, that would have sold Nintendo Switch units. So to say that it's definitely not a possibility of happening, I think is a bit disingenuous, because it's all about money at the end of the day. And if Sony ponied up enough money to say, hey, Capcom, you know, it'll be more worthwhile to put it on our platform. Here's some money, put it on the Xbox One. Maybe they'll sell a couple copies in the States. It makes sense to me. You also have to look at how Capcom hasn't been really supporting the Nintendo Switch at all, even due to all the success that the system has been having. Aside from Ultra Street Fighter 2, the final challengers, what have you gotten from Capcom? Anything? Any announcements? Any upcoming games to look forward to? No, you didn't even get Mega Man Legends 2 on a Nintendo platform, and I think it sold best on the 3DS, so it's like, damn, like, maybe something is up. Maybe Capcom is being paid off by Sony to not put their titles on the Nintendo Switch. But then there's the other side of the coin, that maybe this is just looking too deep into things. So one thing that a lot of people seem to be forgetting is Monster Hunter is already coming to the Nintendo Switch in Japan. It's actually getting a system bundle. And yes, it is Monster Hunter Double Cross, which was already released for the 3DS, but that's just how Monster Hunter in Japan sort of works, and on Nintendo home consoles in general. Monster Hunter Tri for the Wii was a port of the 3DS version. You had Monster Hunter 4, which came out, or no, you had Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, which came out on the 3DS and the Wii U, and now you have the same thing happening with Double Cross. So, I mean, that's just how it works with Nintendo platforms. That's just how it's always been with Nintendo platforms and the Monster Hunter brand. So it's not like this is something really new. And Monster Hunter World, like I said, yes, Monster Hunter is very popular in Japan, but this is sort of a westernized version of the game. A lot of people are noticing, you know, the open world aspect, the fact that I don't think you select all your equipment at the start and you could switch equipment on the fly. It's very different than a Monster Hunter game that we've seen recently on, you know, a Nintendo platform. So that's sort of a thing that I'm kind of like, well, maybe, you know, maybe they even started this game before the Nintendo Switch was even a thing. Obviously, it's been in development for quite a while. Development kits for the Nintendo Switch did not go out all that early. So to, you know, plan for a platform that you don't know what it is and you don't know exists is just kind of crazy to me. Another thing I want to bring up is the fact that everyone's saying, well, Capcom's not supporting the Switch. What are they doing there? There should be this game and this game and this game. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at the previous home console, the Wii U, and look at all the great third-party games that sold awesome on there. Oh, wait, no third-party games sold on the Wii U. Like, that's what was the crux of the system. No third-party games sold on the Wii U. That's why they released a bunch at the start. And yeah, you could say, oh, there were bad ports or whatever, but there was a lot of good games on there. There was a lot of good ports. Need for Speed, what was the Need for Speed game? I don't remember the subtext of it, but the Need for Speed game actually was the best looking version out of the Wii U, PS3, and the Xbox 360 because they used PC textures in the Wii U version of the game. So the game looked so much better, but nobody bought it because it was an older game. Deus Ex was amazing on the Nintendo Switch. That's probably one of my top 5, or Nintendo Wii U, excuse me. That was probably one of my top 5 games on the system. I loved Deus Ex on there. It was great use of the gamepad. Sold like crap. It didn't even sell, I don't even think it sold 50,000 copies. Like, third-party companies have every right and every reason to be hesitant about putting their games on the Nintendo Switch, especially because, let's face it, a lot of industry people, a lot of YouTubers, a lot of writers didn't necessarily think the Switch would take off like it did. Hell, I was one of the people that was not very happy with the Nintendo Switch initially, but the more I saw of it and the more I thought about it, the more I sort of changed my mind. And then once I finally got my hands on one, I was like, okay, I get it now. But, you know, I'm just a consumer. I'm not a business risking millions and millions of dollars to put my game on a platform. So show me a third-party company that's really jumped in and released a lot of games. There really hasn't been one. You know, Super Bomberman R from Konami, like, that's a pretty safe title, especially considering it was a launch title. And now you're starting to have companies sort of pick up the pace. You know, you're starting to see 2K with the WWE game coming out on the system. This is the first time that a WWE game has been out on a Nintendo platform in a long time. So it's just gonna take time. Everyone is hesitant to jump into the Nintendo Switch when they're developers because of the poor sales of the Wii U and the poor game sales on the Wii U. If it wasn't a Nintendo game or a second party game, it didn't sell, and even some second party games didn't sell. Looking at you, Wonderful 101. Finally, you have the whole thing that the reason the Nintendo Switch has 4 gigs of RAM is because of Capcom's request. So that seems to be a very popular rumor. Lots of people have actually confirmed that rumor, that are, you know, pretty much rumor mill people, but they, you know, have high credence in the industry. So I don't know, not enough things add up for this rumor to really make sense. If I have to give my final decision on whether or not I think Sony paid Capcom to keep titles off the Nintendo Switch, I say no. I don't think it's happening. You know, maybe there was some sort of thing with Monster Hunter World, maybe, but once again, the game obviously has been in development for quite a while. They weren't going to develop it for the Wii U and just simply port it over. If it's using a proprietary Capcom engine, it's probably not something that's very easy to port over, and you're getting a Monster Hunter game on the Switch in Japan, all because Capcom has said as of right now there are no plans to bring Monster Hunter Double Cross for the Nintendo Switch stateside. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. They could just be waiting for Monster Hunter World to be out for a couple months and then bring it next summer. So no, I don't think that this is what's happening. Now, things like this have happened, I'm sure, but in this situation, no. And even if it is happening, I own a PS4 and a Switch all the same, so whatever. I'm still going to play the game if I want to play it. So what do you think? Do you think that Sony is this big evil devil and they're trying to screw Nintendo owners out of games? Let me know in the comments section down below. I'd like to thank Josh for this question. If you would like to submit a question to, what's this show called? Ask RGT 85, be sure to like the Facebook fan page. About once a week or so, I ask you guys to give me a question and I'll cover it on the channel. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that like button, and I'll catch you guys next time. Later.
RGT 85, RGT 85. RGT 85.